Good evening, Internet. This is CFS Eurovision here. And I know what you're thinking. You're early. Yes, it may only have been 3 days since the last upload, but I was a week behind, so I may as well get rid of that week and do videos that focus on something that happened 5 days ago rather than 2 weeks. Today we have a slightly more chilled out video before next week's barrage of countries, as this week we only have 4 shows to go through. Let's take a look. We start with perhaps the most surprise addition to the national final lineup, and that's Eurovision 2026 hosts Austria. They've randomly decided on a new national final for the first time in a decade. 2016 was the last time they held a national final, and they've chosen a year they're hosting to do it again. What could possibly go wrong? Surely things that go wrong won't make people doubt your hosting ability before you even hosted, right? Anyway, Alice Tumler was joined by 2018 Austrian act Cesar Sampson to host this one on Friday the 20th of February at ORF Zentrum Königsberg. 12 acts took part, and the result was decided by 50-50 jury televote. So without further ado, a results rundown. 12th was David Kurt with Pockets Full of Snow. It received 0 points. Was it that bad? I'm not sure. The main sticking point I had was that his voice was a little weird and off-putting.
It won't last 1 year.
I checked his other songs because I don't feel it quite matches his face, and those were similar, so I shrugged that one off, but I then noticed that I preferred the rest of his discography to this song. Maybe he's trying too hard to fit in with the contest rather than bringing his actual music to the show. But that's my opinion anyway. 11th, Philipp Pilar with Das Leben ist Kunst, which means life is art. To illustrate this, he decided to perform with covered furniture similar to that one Latvian entry this year that I said looked like he was painting the inside of his house, and then later removed the covers to reveal very weird designs. Very nice. One of my criticisms of this song is the way he enunciates Kunst. My other is there aren't really any moments that wow me, so around this area of the scoreboard is probably accurate. 10th, the amazingly named Reverend Stomp with Mescalero Ranger. This one is apparently about coming to terms with the past and embracing the uncharted territory of the future. I have to say, I feel this message fell flat because it's very muted and stripped back in its nature. They're also very obviously not playing the 3 guitars live and doing vastly different but all bad mimes to try and hide that fact. I know live instruments aren't used on these stages per the rules, but at least make a better effort to hide it. 9th, Sidrit Vokshi with Wenn ich rauch, which means when I smoke. There's a lot of smoke around him. Get it? Because it's about when he smokes? The crowd appear to be doing the flashlight thing, but the camera never shows that side, so we don't get the impact of that. The story of this song is that Sidrit is struggling to forget a past lover, and that smoking triggers memories of them. I think the staging works well in that regard, but the song just falls flat. It's boring, and I can't think of much to say about it. 8th, Julia Steen with Julia. Finally one I actually like. A tribute to showing empowerment and strength in life. This one is upbeat, it's dancey. I do hope no flamingos were harmed in the making of her outfit. But my main criticism is similarity to songs that are big at the moment. My mind goes straight specifically to Alex Warren's Carry You Home here. I love that song, but I can't help but think this is too similar for me to fully appreciate it. 7th, Frevd with Riddle. Another one I like. It explores themes of psychological repression, dreams, and repressed truths. So no change to other heavy rock there then. Obviously, as it's rock, and it's vaguely decent rock, this is my favourite from the show. Everything from the face paint to the concert vibes make this great for me, and I think this should have won, and even though it came 7th, I'm not ashamed to say it. And most of you agree with me, as it got 4.6 stars on Eurovision World. 6th, Anna Sophie with Superhuman. The level of this show was at, in terms of quality, was dreadful. And this, placing this high, proves my point. The song isn't bad, but it's generic, and it's at the level of usually being lower mid-table in most selections. So for me to rank this even higher than this and put it 5th, something is wrong with the quality of this show. There'll be more on that in a few weeks when I do an overall look at these shows and what advice I'd give for next year. As for the song, it's okay and an appropriate opener, but it should have been nowhere near the top of the scoreboard. 5th, Nicotine with Unsterblich, which means immortal. Nicotine, interestingly, means exactly what it sounds like. Nicotine in English, making this our 2nd smoking reference of the show. The song delves into the duality of heaven and hell, the desire for eternity and a refusal to die, all relatable themes to most of us. Where it falls down for me is the disjointed nature of the music. The vocals almost always have a distorted effect on them, and yet there's a moment where it would clearly make a lot more sense to use the effect than at any other point in the song. Shout out to escgottem though, nice to see that he's attempting an act. 4th, Kayla Kristin with Ibren, which means I'm burning. Someone put her out! What did she use to illustrate this, I wonder? Oh yes, flame LEDs. Very imaginative. Unfortunately, they ran out of dry ice by the looks of things, as it left a blank space on the stage where we could see the rest of her dress flat out on the stage, looking a bit like a deflated balloon. As for the song, it's a generic ballad. It isn't bad in terms of quality, but I'm looking for something more than this. 3rd, Bamlak Werner with We Are Not Just One Thing. This is probably the most innovative and overall different song in the competition, and it gets a heap of plus points for that relative to the others. However, I do have some criticisms, which is that as much as it tries to be different, there are very samey tropes used in this song. The armography seems to be used in lieu of backing dancers, which would have helped this so much more in my opinion. The rising sun LED, and perhaps most unimaginative of all, the change of language in the final verse. Love is Forever by Leonora from Denmark was 7 years ago. The world has moved on from those tropes. Overall, I do like this song, and would have actually put this 2nd rather than 3rd. 2nd, Lena Schauer with Painted Reality. This song is about striving for perfectionism and wanting to be something you're not for the benefit of others. I have to say very little of this song is saying that that's wrong for me. There's not much that's different from anything else. It's guilty of being the one thing it portrays. It tries to fit in too much. Staging-wise, I like the curtain reveal, even if it looks slightly botched. And the winner of Wer singt für Österreich was Cosmo with Tanschein. No, not that. This is Tanschein, which means dance license. Now, look, I'm going to be completely honest when I say this, Austria, and I'm going to hold your hand when doing so. You've chosen wrong here, big time. What on earth is going on here? A man dressed as a disco ball, some random people with animal heads, and a song that isn't interesting enough that you want to keep listening, even to see what the animal heads do. Host entries already don't do well at Eurovision, and unless the boycott results in about 5 people voting, this certainly won't. We come to our weekly visit to Sweden's Melodifestivalen now, and Heat 4, which took place in the home of the 2013 and 2024 contests, Malmö Arena in, well, Malmö. The 3 songs which were eliminated were as follows. Timo Räisänen with Ingenting är efter oss, which means nothing is after us. Nothing seemingly referring to a blank canvas, as the song is broadly about moving into the future and putting the past behind you. It gets points for being in Swedish, but as usual for Melfest songs, there's very little uniqueness about this song. The staging is minimal and would benefit from backing dancers, and it didn't particularly entertain me at all. Felix Manu with Hatar att jag älskar dig, which means hate that I love you. It's a nice little song. He's got personality and charisma. He has lots of boxes. I'm running out of things to say. It's nice enough, but it's not a contender, and it doesn't really go anywhere in terms of quality of vocal. And Erika Jonsson with Från landet, which means from the countryside. It's a country song, unsurprising, though a bit more rocky than most country. It's more Katie Tunstall than Shabuzi, for want of better references. My goodness, those were bad. Look, the aesthetic is interesting. The idea that it's a cowgirl performing in a saloon kind of setting is a good way of staging it. But nothing is changing the fact that the genre doesn't tend to do well on its own in Melfest or indeed any national selection, it seems. And sadly, it would seem it doesn't get your support either, as it received 2.3 stars on Eurovision World. The entry that went through to the final qualification round was returnee Mira Omar with Dusit Daram, which means I love you. Mira Omar was born in Kabul, Afghanistan, and the influences from the Arab world are very clear to see in her music. Her previous Melfest entry, Hush Hush, has similar influences. This makes her songs stand out unlike any other, and this is no exception. It's a good bop, but perhaps the problem with it is that if I had been asked to guess which Eurovision country it was from, I'd have said Azerbaijan. The song doesn't have much of an identity within a Swedish context, and as such that's probably the reason why it's in the final qualification round, rather than going straight through to the final. That said, I personally love it, and so do you, with 4.8 stars on Eurovision World. The song that went straight through to the final using the age group point system was Eternity by Kimberly. Intriguingly, this one won the point system by not much in the end against Mira Omar, getting 10s instead of the maximum 12 from 4 of the 7 age groups, with very little consistency among which gave it 12 and which gave it 10. For instance, the 3 to 9s gave it 10, and yet so did the over 75s at the other end of the bracket, whilst 16 to 29 and 60 to 74 gave it 12s. Look, I'll be honest here, I'm not a massive fan of this song. The song is about breaking free and self-discovery, but unless the discovery is that you're a really boring person, I'm not really sure what a song this generic is trying to convey. I'm sorry, but this was 5th in my heat ranking, only ahead of Erika Jonsson. The actual heat winner, which I did agree with, was another returnee, Smash Into Pieces, with Hollow. Well, if you smash something into pieces, it probably will be hollow. The song is about how we're slowly losing ourselves in a digital world. It conveys this through the staging, with every single band member having electric wires in their backs, as if the technology is powering them and not the other way around. It's not only the message and the staging I like here, but the song itself. I would love if this won Melodifestivalen, and it's about time Sweden chose rock. As usual, we move from Sweden to Lithuania now for Eurovizja.LT's 5th and final heat. The songs that were eliminated from this heat were Hansanova with Lumina, which is actually a made-up word and the song is entirely in English. The song is based on folklore and depicts the last surviving fairy holding on to hope as her kind fades away. The vibes are a little bit rocky, a little bit techno, slightly stripped back in a good way. I actually found the innovativeness here made this my favourite of the heat, so I'm very disappointed it didn't go through, much more that it came dead last. Especially as I feel there's a huge gulf in quality between the first 3 songs and the next 4 after that. Lokite with Vikor IQ, which means Wolf's Eyes. The themes for this one are haunting memories, emotional detachment, and a struggle to let go of a past toxic relationship. The lines of "how to escape but I still want to look" are accompanied with a background of eyes. The singer's left eye is also focused upon in close-ups. This is another one I really liked, but clearly Lithuania sees it the opposite way. Returnee Matas Ligaika with Svetimi, which means strangers. This may be slightly generic rock, but I am the king of overrating rock, so I really like this one. This is 4th out of the 4 songs I actually liked, though. I don't really have much more to say about it than this. Returnees Il Senso with Brave Enough. This is where the gulf begins. To me, the first 3 songs all sound inventive enough, and that they could be competitive. Numbers 4 to 7 in the running order all sound like they belong in these heats and no further in the competition. This is supposed to be an empowering song about overcoming fear, breaking free from isolation, and choosing your own path in life. But in reality, it just comes across as another version of the many 2010s male-female duets we had that had varying levels of success. If by varying you mean very few of them had success at all, besides the common Linettes, and that was 12 years ago. And Aika with Raga, which means witch. Oh, we haven't let those go from 2024 yet, huh? This song is about self-reflection, emotional confrontation, and finding clarity after hitting a low point. Essentially, I think she's briefly referring to herself as the witch in this situation. Staging could definitely do with a few props here and there, but overall the song is a little dull. 2.3 stars on Eurovision World, say you agree. The song that qualified for the wildcard round, which we'll go into in a moment, was returnee Jokubas Jankauskas with Shine. The song is about overcoming adversity, self-expression, and resilience. Now, the aesthetics and the staging I like. The song, I don't. There's not much to remark about in the way of music. The backing track is as if you tap a few things on a drum machine and then set them to loop for 3 minutes while applying lyrics. It's not very inventive, and as there have been stronger heats, I don't think this makes it through the wildcard round. The songs that made it straight through to the final were Walls of Water with Unshakable. What is this voice and why? The music isn't very inspiring either, and I can't really find much of a redeeming factor at all. I simply don't know why it's here, and it looks like you don't either because you've given it 1.9 stars on Eurovision World. And Lolita Zero with Salve in Meo Mundum, which means welcome to my world, weirdly in Latin, but alright. I will say, despite the gulf between 1 and 3 and 4 and 7 in the running order, this one at 8 was brilliant. I love the staging, the music is fun, as electropop often is. I mean, if I told you this look was from the main contest, you wouldn't bat an eyelid, and it may well get there. So a quick look at the wildcard round then, which was held online from the 21st to 22nd of February, and Jokubas Jankauskas was joined by Thomas G's One Night Lover, a nice song performed confidently, Greta with Parade, female rock but slightly nonsensical, Auramas Papechkis with Tu Mano, dramatic, builds to a conclusion, and Nora Bleu with Hold My Own, which last week I said I felt would struggle due to the fact that other heats had more quality than the heat it was in. I was wrong, because Nora Bleu won with 13,612 votes to second place Greta's 8,165. The others were nowhere close. Jokubas Jankauskas had 1,927, Thomas G had 1,861, and Auramas Papechkis had 1,489. For our last stop on this week's European tour, we're off for the first time this year to Portugal and Festival de Cancao. Semi-final 1 was held in the Valentim de Carvalho studios by Vasco Palmerim, and in the green room, Alexandra Guimarães and Catarina Maia. 8 acts compete, 5 qualify for the final, 4 from 50-50 televote, and the final qualifier from 100% public voting. What's interesting about this one is only 2 artists have confirmed they will go to Eurovision if they win, with everyone else in the competition saying they won't, with the exception of 1 who hasn't confirmed either way. This poses obvious problems, which we'll go into another time. But for now, here are the eliminated acts. Bacio Mato with Nos Teus Olhos, which means in your eyes. I have to say there's very little I understand here, and it's not just the language barrier that makes this difficult. I don't know why these three men are playing a drum set that's made for two and that have eyes printed on them, other than the relevance to the title. It seems many of you don't understand it either, because you gave it 2.3 stars on Eurovision World. Agridoce with Onde Quiero Estar, which means where I want to be. In an interview, they said they just wanted to make people dance, and they certainly did that. I enjoyed it. I'm not sure why they were wheeled on boxes for much of it, though. My other criticism is that there were moments where the camera was so clearly focused on one of them, and yet all three vocalists kept singing in harmony throughout the song. I feel like it would have been better if we had moments where they had individual solo vocal parts. Also, it doesn't even reach 2.5 minutes, let alone 3. And Mario Mata with Pertencer, which means belong. I don't know much about this song, and the information about all of FdC's songs is scarce at the moment. However, I would just like to say that I really love how enthusiastically happy he is when he sings Olele, ole, olele. It just brings me a little bit of joy, which is why I now like this song. So let's cover the 4 songs that went through in the 50-50 stage then, starting with Dinismota and Jure, which means I swore. This is a decent track that may well get the audience moving, but it's nothing more than that for me. There's very little about it that makes me particularly motivated to vote for it. It's just there. Nunca Mates or Mandarim with Fumo, which means smoke. Not again. Interestingly, Nunca Mates or Mandarim means never kill the Mandarin, which is a great band name in English if anyone wants to be the English version of this lot. Anyway, it's apparently about anxieties surrounding living conditions, nostalgia, and the internet. To be honest, I got none of that from the staging, and from the camera work, you'd swear it was about the lead singer's moustache. Evaya with Sprint. This one is about finding the strength to move on from situations in which you no longer belong. I'm okay with this one going through. I feel it's a song that does what it needs to do. I will never be able to relate too much to these songs, but I can see why this one goes through. And Marquise with Chuva, which means rain. They've said their intention when entering the competition is to showcase the alternative music scene of Portugal, and I think they've done that well here. I'm definitely someone who will always rate rock and alternative rock higher than most, and I think this is the song out of this semi-final that for me is by far the most accessible. I appreciate that it doesn't really need to be in order to win the selection, but for me, this is what I'd go for. And finally, the song that qualified through the 100% televote round was ironically the one in this semi-final that actually does want to go to Eurovision. Andre Amaro with Dame a tua mão, which means give me your hand. I do like this song, which is annoying because I feel that's slightly incompatible with my stance on Eurovision 2026. But credit where credit is due, it feels like he does want it and clearly has made a massive effort with this, and isn't just pretending he deserves it more just because he would go to Eurovision if he won. So that's it, a shorter video this week because of a smaller amount of countries. Unfortunately, there's a huge onslaught next week, so be prepared for that. I might have to make that one a 2-parter, we'll see. But thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, give it a like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.